and welcome to Diversity in AV Productions.
Please welcome our speaker, Anka Trafan, DES. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce you to her. She is not only a CEO, but she's also a strategist of Tree Fan Events, a woman owned event planning and production agency. With years of experience, Anka has executed events of various magnitudes while wearing many technical hats. And we know what that's like as women, don't we? She's a certified event professional, a digital event strategist, and has received several awards, including the Smart Women in Meetings Award and the Women to Watch Tech Award. Anka is a passionate thought leader and advocate for women in event technology and productions, as well as a fitness athlete and motivational speaker. In this talk, she'll share practical insights from her personal journey and experiences to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace. Please welcome Anka Trafan.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so awesome to see a few faces still hanging around here, especially after last night, and also at a time when everyone just wants to go and get drinks. That's the reality, okay? So I get it. I'm gonna try to go through this stuff fast because I want all of us to go and get drinks later, and I'm the first one to sign up for whatever it is that it's happening. It's been 2 long days, so the fact that you're here, you guys matter a lot to me. Okay, so let's get this show on the road. Diversity in AV production, as we're about to find out, has plenty of advantages, yet there are a few challenges that we need to overcome, as well as biases, and more than one way to get there, as the traditional ways to go about it have not always been all that effective. As we explore the topic of creating a more dynamic and innovative AV team and workforce in our industry, one of the most pressing questions to ask is, how are we going to achieve this goal? It seems that so many AV vendors, and there's quite a few here, as you see, they are still hesitant when it comes to hiring women in AV lead roles. And in particular, they are citing reasons such as, well, there's this lack of maybe technical skills or even like strong physical profile. So let me ask you a risky question. As we are considering our AV teams, do they reflect the diversity of the clients and event audiences that we serve? How can we move from the quintessential image of what a behind-the-scene tech team looks like today? And by the way, all of those are amazing people. I actually got to work with a lot of them that I know personally, and they're all doing diversity strides in the right direction, and I can tell you that those are making differences, not just in their companies, but in the events that they work. And that still though raises the question, how can we move from that we saw to a more dynamic, diversified, and innovative AV team that better represents the clients that we serve and the audiences that we serve as well? Because when our AV team is better represented by people from diverse backgrounds, it ensures that more voices are being heard and more perspectives are as well valued. Just recently, a client of mine, a global speaker, had this one thing to say, and let's watch this short 30-second clip, and I hope we have sound enabled.
Putting your microphone on. It's so nice to have a woman that understands what you may be thinking, what you're wearing, all of those different things. And it doesn't happen quite often. I was with the NBA for a long time, National Basketball Association. We run great events. We have some of the best producers and technicians around the world. And I would tell you, I can probably count on my hand over the number of events over 10 years or 20 years I've worked with the NBA that there was a woman that was running things, right? Like, it matters, right? And so making sure that we have different people at the table are really
She was going to say is really important. As a woman who's presenting on stages around the country, it's so nice to have a woman put on my microphone. It doesn't happen all that often. Only by embracing diversity can we create a more representative and innovative AV team, as well as a equitable and welcoming environment that encourages collaboration, creativity, and growth, not just for our team members, but for our females on the team, ultimately resulting in better events for our clients. And so without much further ado, welcome to today's talk, Diversity in AV Productions. The goal of this talk is to look at ways for creating a diverse team while charging ahead with courage, vulnerability, and authenticity, explore some of the challenges faced by women and some of other minorities in our industry, what it means to ensure equal representation and provide green lights, as well as explore 3 different strategies, main strategies for overcoming biases in order to foster a sense of belonging for all. Thank you for joining me as we dive into this important topic. I love my unicorn head profile there. Used to be on LinkedIn for a little while until I decided to get some professional photos. As the only female on many AV tech teams, I had to work hard to earn my place in a pretty male-dominated industry. And honestly, I still have to do that today. While I feel safe in quite a few AV lead technical roles, I'm always looking for opportunities to learn and grow. So before we begin, let me take you on a short journey, all the way back to 17-year-old me, living in Romania at the time, in case you're wondering where my accent is coming from. In my senior year in college, working a part-time job at the local radio station. Sadly, this is the only photo that I have from that time, because apparently we weren't taking as many selfies as we do right now. Through a series of fortunate circumstances, which I very much attribute right now to luck and privilege, I got my foot in the door in my freshman year, actually, in the only radio station in my town, and I loved every moment of it. That was the time I fell in love for the first time, and it wasn't, as you might think, with someone in flesh and bones, but with this one, Mackie 1402 VLZ Pro Small Mixing Board that we used at the time in the studio. It was love at first sight. That mixer still has such a tender place in my heart. That experience drove me to want to learn everything there was to learn about this fascinating world of AV gear and production. The radio station that I was working on put on this yearly festival, and that summer I figured out, okay, this is my chance to get my hands dirty and learn more about AV productions. I remember feeling so excited and so giddy about it. Now, side note here, I have a confession to make. Unfortunately, eventually, I fell out of love with my first crush, that innocent Mackie 1402 small mixer, and I have been quite unfaithful ever since. Many mixing boards followed thereafter. I lost count of them. Yet I still think fondly from time to time about my first love at first sight. Anyway, back to the story. As I was saying, I was so excited to learn more about AV, and when I approached the AV owner of that production company that was working the festival, he pretty much laughed in my face at my intentions and told me that women don't belong in that line of work. He pointed to the men around us and said that only able-bodied men were the ones that he's looking for, and not a scrawny woman like me. And I should just go find a husband and do something else. And honestly, looking at that photo of me from back then, I did look a little scrawny, didn't I? I don't even remember his name and what exactly he was saying after that. One thing I remember is that, one thing I can tell you is that those words have actually really fueled this determination to pursue my dreams of a career in AV productions. And basically, with the clothes on my back and less than $200 in my pocket, against all cultural norms, I decided to leave my home country, move to the US, and just find better opportunities for myself. It's unfortunate that we still have to have this conversation about diversity in AV. All the way into the 21st century in today's age. However, that's why I'm here, and that's what brings us here today. Brené Brown has often said that there is a certain difference between fitting in and belonging. Throughout her work, she has noted that fitting in can be harmful to diversity and inclusion efforts because it reinforces the idea that you have to be a certain way in order to be accepted. In contrast, true belonging embraces diversity and values differences. It is our human innate design to belong and feel accepted. However, it does require vulnerability and courage to show up authentically, especially when it means being different or standing out. True belonging embraces diversity and values differences. In the past, I tried to live in my masculine energy just to belong and be accepted, to be one of the guys, and it certainly backfired. It wasn't easy to embrace my true self, including my feminine side, in a male-dominated niche, but it did empower me, and by my example, many other women, to just be themselves and bring their unique qualities to the table so we can create the type of spaces where everyone feels accepted for who they are. Charging for diversity and equity against the very grain of our industry takes courage. It takes courage to acknowledge and address our own biases in order to create a space where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their differences. It takes courage to speak against the establishment and go against the status quo. It takes courage to point out inequality and unfairness in hiring and compensation practices. Now, as an 8 on the Enneagram spectrum, advocating for the underdog and fighting against injustices comes quite naturally to me, but I haven't always had the courage to speak up and act on it. I had to learn to advocate for myself first, especially when it comes to overcoming the pay gap in our industry. Speaking up for yourself can feel difficult at times, but it's necessary to prove your worth and demonstrate that you have just as much right to be there like the next guy does, even if by doing so, you may be perceived as problematic or difficult. One of the biggest challenges to advocating for diversity is overcoming also the fear of vulnerability, because we often think that vulnerability means weakness. I know I have, when in reality, it is a source of strength. By being vulnerable, we open ourselves up to new experiences, ideas, and perspectives. We show others that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to ask for help. As a woman in event productions, I've had to learn for myself that vulnerability is a source of strength and not a weakness. Overcoming the fear of being seen as weak or emotional, I've had to embrace my femininity, and I have also taken quite some risk as well. Just recently, I've led an entire behind-the-scenes AV team with women technicians in lead roles, even though I was very much discouraged by a senior technical director that believed that women could never be as good as men in technical positions. And to his disappointment, the highly complex 3-day hybrid event was a roaring success, which only proves the point that diversity in AV can lead to innovative outcomes and excellence. Advocating for diversity also means understanding the importance of being authentic, of being true to yourself and your values, even when it's difficult or it feels uncomfortable. For instance, I have been that female AV tech on a male-only AV team, and during the setup, it's pretty common to hear, funny but sexist comments from the other male techs. And being authentic in this situation, it meant speaking up and addressing the behavior in a professional and assertive manner, even if it feels uncomfortable. I had to have one-on-one conversations with guys who made this type of comments and explain how their words can be hurtful or offensive. And because I'm also a bit of a banter myself, Guilty as charged. I actually had to have, a guy or two come to me and say the same thing to me because honestly, this is a two-way street. In our AV male-dominated industry, there's this pressure to always appear confident and in control. Yet, by being true to ourselves and our values, taking risks, admitting our limitations, and embracing vulnerability, we can inspire others to do the same and create this culture of openness and a culture that fosters the type of innovation and growth that we're looking in our AV teams and our workforce that will also translate into our events. This involves mastering the courage to challenge the status quo and speak up when we see injustice, discrimination, or inequality. It also means being willing to listen to others and learn from their experiences, even if it challenges our own system of beliefs, which it's never fun. That's the reality. And of course, I had to bring some props. If you've worked one day behind the scenes, you're probably familiar with Show Blacks. And when producing events, I wear black shirts that make me feel comfortable. It's common for me to wear, like in those pictures, shirts that are not necessarily your regular AV shirt, but they make me feel confident in my own skin and comfortable. But when I freelance, I'm often given shirts like this one. And those are just 4 of the shirts that I've been given this year alone. And there's different sizes here, but they're all small. If you guys believe it or not, they're all small, okay? Kit, if I asked you to wear this shirt, sorry to pick on you, how would you feel? I mean, you think I'm mad, right? Like, you're like, what is wrong with you? That shirt fits me fine, but it doesn't fit your body type, right? Yet, it happens more often than not that this is exactly what happens to us because this perfectly fine shirt is designed to fit me. Those are just, like I said, a few versions of what small looks like. And honestly, anything that is medium or large either goes in the trash or my husband wears them as PJs. That's the reality. Now, here's the deal. And I'm going to try to say this as respectfully as I can. As a woman in AV, I don't care to wear your shirts. And especially if they don't fit my body type. And especially if they don't make me feel confident in my own skin. But if I must wear them, all I'm asking is, please order female-shaped shirts in small and extra small sizes that accommodate different body types for the likes of me that dress at children's place. This particular example, I just wanted to bring it up so I can highlight the importance of ensuring that our dress code policies are not biased towards just one particular gender or body type. Dress code policies should be mindful of diversity and provide options that make everyone feel valued and foster the type of inclusivity and equitable team that we can build a culture around for all of us to feel stronger and confident in the roles that we're assigned. And that brings us to the importance of DEI. DEI, what a buzzword has it been lately, right? As mentioned before, diverse AV teams tend to lead to better event experiences, more innovative event solutions, and provide role models for younger women and other minorities. The problem, however, is getting there, as many have scrambling to fill positions with more women and more people of color in order to improve the representation of minorities by means of quotas, which more often than not backfire. Worst of all, the new employees and freelancers, they all feel like they've been hired to make up the numbers rather than because of their skills. So then what's the solution? But before we can even answer that question, let's find out, what is diversity? Most people answer this question by making references to obviously visible differences. and those would be gender, race, and that's an okay start, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Diversity is about more than just visible differences. Just think of what makes each one of you unique. Chances are, intangibles like our personalities, our life experiences, our belief systems would rank pretty high, right? Well, that's pretty much the point. There's more to people than what meets the eye. Diversity, in other words, is about recognizing that every person is a rich tapestry woven together from multiple threads which shapes who we are. Unfortunately, we often focus on what we can see and ignore the invisible threads. That leads to the common fallacy that people who look alike have the same views and nothing could be farther away from the truth. And why should diversity matter to our businesses and to our organizations and to our events? Diversity and equal representation is not only good in its own right, but it's also an essential part of doing business in today's world. Because we live in an age that is increasingly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We can call it VUCA for short. The world is constantly changing, and we certainly learned that during COVID, which has created a recent environment where top talent and skills are so much harder to find and come about, and businesses like ours are forced to scout for top skills across borders and organizations, not just across city. Today's world's leading analysts have concluded that during several studies, the highly diverse businesses are 35% more likely to enjoy above industry average returns than their less diverse counterparts. Diversity pays, but if it's such a no-brainer, then why are more companies cashing in? In one word, bias. Let me ask you a simple question. What does the default American look like? If you're like most people who grew up in the US, you have probably been conditioned to imagine him, and most have been brought up to believe it's a he, as straight, white, and able-bodied. To this day, many people treat every other type of body sort of like an exotic twist on this original recipe. And this shouldn't really be surprising because these traits have historically dominated our culture and the government. And even now, most of the people that we see and expect to see behind the scenes, look around, they're guys. They're white men. I mean, with the exception, sorry. The balance has been improving lately, but white men remain overrepresented in our society as well as on our AV teams. Humans are naturally prone to judging people according to cliches rather than their actual merits. And these biases come in such a large number of different forms. Here's a quick example. What if I showed you a few photos next? I don't know who that person is. What would you say this person's profession is? She seems to be into fitness, and based on the trophies pictured in the middle, she could have won some kind of competition. Does she look like someone who'd care much about AV, mixing audio, switching video, I don't know, technical direction, show calling? Maybe, but probably your first instinct thought would be, nah. But what if I told you that the same person, in the same month, she took home those 2 first-place awards in a natural bodybuilding competition, also ran 3 major events in different parts of the country? And let me tell you, prep for a bodybuilding competition during the busy season is just as grueling as a full-fledged military boot camp. I don't think I ever want to do that again, although I think I already signed myself up for it. Implicit stereotypes and innate biases link certain groups with supposedly typical traits. As we already mentioned, think of the default association between men and technology, AV production, lead roles, and guys. And this type of snap judgments have such a huge effect on hiring practices and our behind-the-scenes AV team behaviors. Then there is in-group favoritism, an age-old human tendency to prefer people who are more like us. Beginning of the year, I was actually asked to be the technical lead for a large event by an AV partner I have worked with before. However, I was later switched to running sound in one of the ballrooms because all of the other AV leads were male, and they wanted to keep the team that was leading kind of like maintain their comfort level. After some investigation, I've also realized that there were under 2% out of 300 plus AV techs on that event. Those were females, under 2%. This low ratio really bothered me, especially in the context where I've had conversation with this AV partner, and they were particularly so strong about advocating diversity from the rooftops, but unfortunately, didn't really follow through with much action. It's essential for us to identify our false assumptions, adopt corrective strategies, unlearn biases, and avoid in-group favoritism in order to overcome behavior that reproduces narrow group advantages. A great place to start by identifying our biases is by taking surveys like the Harvard Implicit Association Test, an online tool that can help identify our subconscious biases. And I know this is a lot on one slide, so I will have a QR code for this at the end of the presentation. This will give us the opportunity to look at our own attitudes towards others and ask questions like, did I just assume that an AV female is less technical or knowledgeable than a male AV tech? Did I just assume that a male candidate is more ambitious than a female candidate just because she has kids at home? Facing our bias is a necessary step in order to become more aware of how they impact our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and take steps towards overcoming them. For example, this is where I actually wanted to find out more about my own bias towards gypsies. This is something that I knew I had it ingrained in me because I grew up with gypsies in my country of origin, and unbeknownst to me, I had certain biases, and I wanted to learn more about it, so I ran the test on that. In our industry, this lack of representation really makes females feel like they don't have a say, and they don't have the support system and the mentorship that they require in order to be offered equal opportunities and overcome the pay gap. And I know we're running a little bit out of time, so I'm going to kind of get into my next part of the presentation, which is another thing that I'm super passionate about, is the fact that we really have to be very much aware of the words we use, because if we don't change our vernacular, if we do not look at the fact that when we say AV guys, we're actually not being inclusive, we're actually eliminating a lot of people from seeing themselves in roles they would otherwise thrive in. And I've got stories for days, but if you want to learn more about that, I actually welcome you to look into our community that I have started a little while ago. It's on LinkedIn and on WhatsApp. Some of those stories are just disturbing, like one of my friends that was saying that she was actually being scolded by the other AV team guys on the crew because she was wearing makeup. That's just ridiculous if you ask me. So what are some of the strategies that we can help fight some of those biases and challenges that women and minorities face in our industry? One of them is cultural competency. And that is just something that is so necessary for us to have, able to understand the teams and the people that we work with. It's an essential skills that we need to look to have. Another one is avoiding groupthink. And that is the tendency to just favor people that look like us, and that only makes an opportunity for us to have bad calls and just do things under pressure that are not representative or maybe our belief system. Another way, I was going to have here another example, but I'm going to skip over that. Another strategy that I would lean into is speculative conversations. And this is where we can attempt to sit at a table and look at where we are right now, where we want to go, and allow for the exploration of potential solutions for whatever problem we face and not be limited by current constraints or realities. We really want to approach this type of discussions, however, with an open mind and a willingness to listen and learn. Because in order to create this type of diverse teams, that takes ongoing effort and commitment. Promoting diversity is the right thing to do because everyone deserves an equal chance to succeed. And I want to also give you the encouragement to look at ways to provide green lights for women and minorities because that's such an important step towards promoting the type of diversity and equity we're looking for in AV productions. So to wrap it all up, the main takeaway and the key message that I would like to leave you with today. Diversity isn't just desirable in and itself because I make a pretty good case for it. It's really good for business. And the reason why more companies are embracing it is pretty simple, human bias. Luckily, the tendency to favoring groups can be learned. By adopting the strategies mentioned, we can start recognizing the type of stereotypes and biases that are really harmful to all teams and just foster an open and inclusive space and build a more diverse team and a business. So I want to encourage you to continue this important work because it takes more than one person to make a difference. It takes courage to speak up and challenge the status quo, but it's essential to create the type of inclusive and diverse team that we want. It takes vulnerability to recognize and address our own biases and limit diversity, but it is crucial to create a culture of respect. It takes authenticity to be true to ourselves, but is vital for building trust and fostering genuine connections. Let's take action together towards diversity, equity, and inclusivity for all. Every single step counts, and I am so happy that we all get a chance to do this. It's not just me, it's not my mission, it's everybody else's mission to do so. Thank you. And if you want to learn more, obviously we don't have time for questions, please do scan the QR code, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I would love to actually answer any questions you might have. And also this is that QR code that I mentioned for the IAT test, as well as more resources in the presentations. Thank you.